Hi everyone, I'm Dewey, or the One DNA, and I'm one of the moderators of SoCal Asian Connection. It is my greatest pleasure to finally meet and really get a closer glimpse of one of our group's members, creatively speaking. And so without further ado, here we have photographer Cory Sherwood. Cory, pleasure to meet you. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me on this. It's such a cool experience to be able to do an interview with you. So I've seen some of your work. It's great.
Thank you so much. Let's get this show on the road. So of course, first question, gotta ask you, I'm gonna give you bragging rights, so please feel free to talk about yourself. What do you do?
So I am a wedding and portrait photographer. My work kind of encompasses a lot of different genres and varieties of portrait work. It includes commercial, TV, and film. It started all the way back in 2018. That's kind of when I first started building a portfolio, and that was more geared towards modeling and fashion type work. And eventually that progressed into some other wedding work, which was kind of just a natural progression when people were coming to me and they were looking for photography services, and that was one of the things that people were asking for. So yeah, that's what I started doing.
Oh, nice, right on. So it seems like you developed a foundation pretty early on.
Yeah, photography was something that I always kept on the side as a hobby, and throughout different stages of life, I was using photography. So for example, in middle school, I was taking photos for the newspaper.
Nice.
High school, it was a yearbook. Community college, again, with the newspaper. And then when I went down to San Diego for university, I kind of dropped off a little bit with photography. And it wasn't until I moved back that I started to build something again.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. And so being a photographer, what does that truly mean to you?
The way that I kind of approach it is, because I do portrait photography, it's more about capturing genuine moments for myself, especially when I'm doing weddings. So I kind of take a more photojournalistic approach, documentary, and with portraits, it's just kind of representing the person as true as they are. So I don't like to do any heavy editing afterwards with Photoshop, things like that. So I like representing people the way they are.
Of course, us two being API creators, honestly, it's been such a pivotal and a celebratory moment to seeing all the groundbreaking moments that have happened as of late. Through your perspective, how do you feel API representation in mainstream media has shifted over the past several years?
That's an interesting question. Growing up, me personally, I never really thought about my position in media as an Asian American. Growing up, I had friends from all different cultural backgrounds, and that's kind of what I was afforded as a kid living in a little bit more middle to upper class neighborhood. So I didn't really feel those pressures of not being seen in the community. And it wasn't until I started getting more into the industry in TV and film, I started noticing that there's a lack of representation for us. And with Crazy Rich Asians, we kind of started getting back on the radar in Hollywood.
Oh, absolutely.
And now, with Everything Everywhere all at once, which is such a phenomenal
Taking
film.
the road by storm.
Yeah. It's insane. And I had the pleasure of being able to meet some of the actors from the film.
Oh,
and
right on.
Being able to hear Key's story about not.
What a legend.
Yeah, he was in TV and film for such a long time, but not really taking on typical or Hollywood roles. There just wasn't any interest in Asian male actor portraying the lead role. This film, it's kind of launched him back into the spotlight. We're in a position now to be able to voice who we are, and we have such a bigger platform. We have an opportunity now more than ever to be able to find those places for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously can't forget about Michelle, the actress of Everything and Everywhere All at Once. She's amazing. And first of all, being API alone in the industry has already been tough enough, but to be a woman, definitely a lot more hurdles they would have to overcome. But the fact that she did all that and she finally, received the flowers that she long deserved for a while, honestly, it's been such a proud moment for our communities. What are some specific challenges and adversities that you face being a creative, being a photographer?
In the industry that I work in, I don't really see any adversities in terms of being an Asian creative or photographer. I would probably see more adversity if I was an actor. People don't really look at you to see like, oh, I need an Asian photographer, or I don't need an Asian photographer.
Yeah.
It's not really a thing.
Yeah. As long as you take good photos.
Yeah, as long as you
actor.
take good photos,
Yeah.
as long as you connect with your client.
Right.
There are some instances where maybe a certain cultural wedding is looking to hire, say, like a Vietnamese-speaking photographer or Chinese-speaking photographer. So I didn't exactly face those sorts of adversities in terms of like being an Asian photographer.
Please share with us some of your greatest accomplishments.
Let me think back. One,
You're like, I have so many.
I got my first publication in a magazine, a very small magazine, and it wasn't really like anything popular, but my work was like displayed in a printed out physical magazine, and it was just interesting to see my work, and it was like front page and everything, and it's not doing anything for me now. It's I've learned that actually like publications, unless if you're shooting for high-end magazines, it's cool to have on your resume, and eventually like it could lead to some other things. I was doing a headshot session, and this was a referral, and I was in contact with the company's marketing team, and they told me a little bit about the client. They're like, oh, you might know him, he's a prominent CEO. And aside from that, they just gave me an address, show up here, take these photos, and that was it. And so I go to this residence out in Beverly Hills area. The CEO is there for the company, and it's in his personal house, or his personal residence. And we're in his he has an office space. Just things like that. You know, like I've come into contact and meeting people that I would have never thought I would otherwise.
So in many cases, API individuals who are pursuing or wanting to pursue anything within the creative industry, oftentimes we don't get support from our family members. What has been your experience? Have you always received the support from your family?
This is a difficult subject because as an Asian community, we often kind of put off those tough questions, especially when we're talking with our parents. Mental health and these sorts of subjects we just don't often approach. I personally, growing up, had very lenient parents. I would say, like, in terms of strictness, they were very laid back, and they gave me room to pursue different interests. Granted, they wanted me to be successful, at least maybe like by a certain age. So starting with photography, starting out and building a business, it was very slow in the beginning. And a lot of the time I was just sitting waiting for work to come through.
And then when the pandemic hit, that didn't really help either.
Yeah, actually, that's interesting because pandemic, there was an abundance of work, at least maybe like a year or two into the pandemic, because there was a backup of work that just kind of exploded eventually. So a couple of those years have been my best in terms of business. But for my parents, there was a level of expectation of me to be doing something productive at this stage in life. And so when I wasn't meeting certain expectations, it became a lot harder being in the position that I am, trying to pursue something creative and not receiving the level of success that I was expecting. I feel like because we're being given a bigger platform nowadays, that career path is a lot more attainable for some of us. And hopefully that'll open the doors to some of our parents to be able to be more accepting.
It provides them the reassurance, like seeing all the success amongst like in our community. Very hopeful for all of us. Apart from photography, what else do you do? Like, are there any hobbies you like to dabble in your free time?
Photography.
It'd be like that.
That's a hobby that I started. A lot of my work goes towards weddings and commercial space and TV and film. So on the side, I'll do more like editorial portraits for fun, maybe fashion. The other thing is that I play a lot of games. So, you know, when I'm editing on one screen, I have a game on the other screen.
Oh, you're a multitasker. Nice. So this is actually our last question of the interview. I had such a great time getting to know you, get to know more about your craft. What advice would you give to aspiring photographers?
I always reiterate the same things. Become business oriented, learn marketing, because you can be a great photographer and artist, but if you don't know how to market yourself and you don't know how to run a business, you're not going to make it.
Oh yeah.
You might get lucky, but it really, at the end of the day, it comes down to being able to run a profitable business.
Yeah.
So learn those steps. I highly recommend looking into, well, depending on like what photography you're looking to get into.
Yeah.
But with my own photography, I have a client management software. I have a professional gallery, online gallery that I use to deliver images.
Yeah.
Professional email, website, anything that creates the business to make it a little bit more professional.
For sure.
So I would say that you can brush up on your photography skills by looking at YouTube videos, and because those are widely available.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, yeah, again, it's running a business.
Oh,
And,
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much again for doing this. You've been great, and I will see you all next time.